Were you the first Indian to drive the Maruti 800 then? The Suzuki 800 in India?
That's right. And whenever we used to stop somewhere or on the traffic light, there always used to be that, a lot of people used to crowd us. What I think now going back and relating it to these times, I think I joined a startup. It was a startup. वो गाड़ी जिसमें कि वो आप 50 किलोमीटर चलाने के बाद बोनेट खोलते हो, फिर पानी बोतल से डाल के उसको रेडिएटर को ठंडा करते हो और फिर चलाते हो. अब उसमें चेंज हो रहा था कि इसमें तो पानी डालने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, ये तो अपने आप ही चलती रहेगी, ये गर्म होगी ही नहीं. You see, in an electric vehicle, I think I feel that there are 3 R's. First R is the right price. Second R is the range. And the third R is the reach.
Hi, my name is Naman and welcome to the Crux podcast. This week we talk to Mr. Pankaj Narula, Senior Advisor and former Executive Director to Maruti Suzuki India. He's an authority on the automobile industry. He joined Maruti when it was a startup in 1982. He tested the first Maruti Suzuki 800 in India. He developed the largest authorized dealer network from Ladakh to Kanyakumari. He established Maruti Service Masters. He's seen it all and he tells us the inside story of Maruti Suzuki, its legendary customer service, its brand, and the future of the automobile industry, including the EV industry for India. You can view this podcast multiple times. He drops some serious wisdom, so grab your notebooks and take notes. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Welcome, Mr. Pankaj sir. Thank you so much for taking out the time.
Thank you for having me on your show.
I'm very, very happy and I'm also very, very scared actually because I'm happy because again, you will tell us the story and we'll learn so much. I'm scared because I'm going to ask stupid questions and your witty replies will take my case. So please be very, very light with me.
Don't worry. I'll take care of you. Like my customers of Maruti.
Perfect. So, sir, before we talk about the Maruti journey, let's just first talk about Mr. Pankaj Narula. As I introduced you, you started with the Maruti, the startup in 1982. So, just a little bit of your background as to what you did and how you landed up at Maruti in 1982 would be a great place for us to start.
Yeah. Naman, I come from a very humble background. My father was in government service. He was in Indian accounts. And he always had the desire that, his family, his children should, grow and, do something bigger. And in those days, golden old days, the government service was not really considered to be very satisfying and, good paying also and all that. So to have a family with a good living and all that. So he wanted his children to do much better and maybe not join the government service. So he was basically a force behind me to do well. And he was always very supportive. He was very responsive to what we wanted to do, what we had in mind, what we should do. And also there was a lot of support from his side there. In those days when I did my higher secondary, in fact, those days it was not class 12, but it used to be higher secondary in our times. And I or my parents also wanted me to become engineer. I got an opportunity. I applied. I got an opportunity to go to London. So I got an admission with King's College, University of London, and that used to be one of the best again in engineering. So I did a sandwich course there with them, and 2 years in the college. 1 year I did in the industry, and again came back and did 1 year with the college. And after qualifying from there, got some campus job offers. I then contacted the company which had selected me during the campus and given me a job offer. So that happened to be a British Leyland. So their subsidiary called Austin Rover. They were the company. If you remember, there was a very famous model Metro, Morris Metro. They used to make at that time. So they were basically the it was much before your time, so you wouldn't know
Sorry.
that. British British Leyland, Ashok Leyland, which is here in India. So British Leyland was the company which started, or they had a collaboration in India for Ashok. So they had the car manufacturing because Ashok Leyland does the commercial vehicles. So they had the car manufacturing also. So I joined that. Austin Rover was the company, and in fact, these Rover cars, vehicles that you see on the roads these days are from that company itself.
Okay.
So joined as a development engineer with them and working on various projects. Then I happened to come to India, came for holidays because used to come once in 2 years, spend about a month with the family. That was the kind of thing. So came here, and my family was very excited that Maruti car company, because they knew I was working for a car company. Car company is coming up in India. So I said, why don't you go and look them up? So I was a little hesitant though, but since there was a little pressure, and I'm sure they wanted me to come back and be with them also, and so have that kind of a family life and getting together with the family. So I said, okay, fine, let's see. So I went there. I went and met Mr. Bhaga, who was an OSD at that time, officer on special duty, and to Mr. Krishnamurthy. Mr. Krishnamurthy was the chairman at that time. I went, met Mr. Bhargav. He interviewed me, asked me what all can be done, how it should be done, and all. So since I had the automobile background and it was an automobile company which was coming up and all, I said, why don't you join them? I said, okay. But he said, then just before that, go and see Mr. Krishnamurthy. So then I went across the corridor, Mr. Krishnamurthy sitting there. But I didn't know how big these people were, how big Mr. Krishnamurthy was and how big Mr. Bhargav was and all that. Mr. Krishnamurthy also said, okay, join us. So they gave me an offer.
Achha.
I said, listen, I can't join you. I have to go back. I have to see. I have to pack up. And they said, oh, take your time. So 6 months, I packed up, sold my car, which I was driving in UK. And those days, there used to be a lot of demands. अरे वापस आ रहे हो, foreign से आ रहे हो, तो एक VCR भी चाहिए, एक VCB भी चाहिए, एक ये कैमरा, सब कुछ इकट्ठा किया हमने करके तो यहाँ आ गए. बस उसके बाद जाके ज्वाइन किया मारुति, and that is how the journey with Maruti started. So that was in 82, way back in 82. I think it was in month of June. 16th of June that I joined in 1982.
How was Maruti in the beginning? Like right now, we know Maruti as this big juggernaut, which touches almost every Indian in some way or the other. But how was Maruti in 1982?
So it was at that time. There was nothing. There was only office, administrative office or corporate office, whatever you call it, in Hansalia building in Connaught Place, and there was this factory here. And that time it was Maruti Limited. That old Sanjay Gandhi time. Sanjay Gandhi had made that company Maruti Limited, and there was a desire of the country or the government at that time or whatever to take that project forward. So they made it a public sector. This was nationalized and they made it a public sector company. And that time, even the collaborator was not decided. Collaboration was also being discussed, and people like Peugeot, Suzuki, General Motors, and all these people, were being discussed with. So one day, then, Mr. Bhargav called me and said, "Listen, this is a company called Suzuki with whom we are discussing, and we are." They're bringing 4 of their vehicles, 4 of their cars to India to see the feasibility, whether the vehicles will be suitable and all. So they said, why don't you join that team? Because there were eight technical experts who came along with that consignment of 4 cars. And they were like, you remember the old Maruti 800 with the round headlamps, that which was Suzuki 800 actually in that time. Then there was this high roof van which was there, which is called Omni,
Omni.
which we call Omni now, but we make only flat roof, but not high roof. At that time used to be high roof. So this was there. Then this open-ended, open back truck was there, which is LCVs, and there was Jimny, which we later on made it as a Gypsy, which was a
Gypsy.
long bed, but it
Hmm.
was Gypsy was there.
Hmm.
So that 4 vehicles were there, 8 engineers were there, and I was with them, and we took the consignment from the Calcutta port. We drove those vehicles, and we were on the road for almost 2 months. So driving from Calcutta, coming all through, and then Delhi to Rajasthan. And I tell you, very, very, very nice incident. We were spending one night in Udaipur,
Hmm.
and we were there in a hotel called Lake Palace, Udaipur Lake Palace. And once we checked in, they would be surprised. There was a lot of activity going on around the swimming pool there, and a lot of those spotlights were there, and a lot of these people moving around, and a lot of those models. And what was happening? Shooting of Roger Moore, James Bond movie, Octopussy. So
Oh my
that was
God.
being shot there that time, that during those days when we were there. It was so exciting. So were these Japanese that this is happening, and this Roger Moore was there. And you know how his Roger Moore's girls are there in his movie. So they were all there in those kind of costumes and around. So it was big fun. It was
Ah.
very nice.
But you were on your own
It
adventure
was
also.
good to see this kind of thing.
Were you the
What
first
kind of
Indian
adventure?
to drive the Maruti 800 then? The Suzuki 800 in India?
That's right. And whenever we used to stop somewhere or on the traffic light, there always used to be that, a lot of people who used to crowd us. Oh, ye
Hmm.
kya aa gaya? Because it used to be something, a novelty. That time people had only seen Ambassador and Premier, the Padmini, and other vehicles there, and they'd not seen these fancy cars there. So it used to be real fun. People asking questions, and this is the objective of that testing was the Suzuki wanted to know whether the suspension of their vehicles is good, whether the body is strong enough to take, because the roads were not so good.
Hmm.
So there used to be a lot of irregularities, potholes, and this and the other. Whether it would be able to undertake that kind of strenuous journey on Indian roads or not. They even sent their AC, air conditioning engineers, whether AC would be effective because the temperatures in India, can go up very high, and some places the humidity is high, some places the humidity is not so good. Whether heating would be good when the vehicles go on the hilly terrain. So all these things they wanted. So that's why 8 technical experts were there who
Hmm.
actually it was 7.
Hmm.
8th was their marketing chap basically.
Right, 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 right.
So he was also there along, and that was Mr. Nakanishi, who later became even the managing director of Maruti. So it was good fun to work with him when he came to India as a managing director, and we used to sit around and talk about our experiences, and our experience at Udaipur Lake Palace and experience on the roads while a lot of people crowding us and all that.
One of the bigger questions, as you said, that there was Padmini, there was Ambassador, there were other startups, other car manufacturers which you would have anticipated and which were also coming up. So what was the strategy for Maruti to say that we are going to become the car? One was the government backing, but apart from that, India also needed the car infrastructure. Abhi, as you said, ki the roads might not have been that great. We don't know what after sales service would have looked like. So what was the company's thinking with respect to how to build that infrastructure and make sure that Maruti is the brand that stays?
Naman, once it was decided that we are going to make a car, once it was decided we are going to make it with Suzuki, then there was only one thing in everybody's mind: how to make it a success. how to make it successful. The same was from Suzuki, and that was from the Maruti's management also. So everything to be done in this regard was to make it a success. You are right. The roads were not good. Premier Padmini or Ambassador, Hindustan Motors Ambassador cars and all, they were, those very strong and it was, some people used to say it's like a tank being driven on Delhi roads. It was so strong and, sturdy, heavy body.
I have
And
driven that Ambassador
the
without a
Suzuki
steering wheel,
cars, they
without
are
a power.
light.
उसको ऐसे
Without
without a
without a
power
steering
steering,
wheel,
without a power steering,
अच्छा, without a power steering, without a
हाँ,
power steering.
उसमें actually लगता
I
है कि
see, I
tank
see.
mode
Yeah,
में.
yeah, it is difficult. It is difficult. It is difficult. So what I'm saying is, no, it's not tank for driving only, but it's tank also on the road. There is such a thick sheet which is used for making it. It's a very heavy vehicle. Then more and more heavy it becomes, less and less fuel efficient it becomes. So it was basically, and Maruti cars were light. They were thin. Thin sheets were being used, but they were contours were such that the strength of those sheets were more than even a thicker sheet of metal for making the body of the vehicle. So, but initially people had, अरे यार ये क्या है? ये तो इंडिया में तो चलेगी नहीं. थोड़ा सा भी साइकिल स्कूटर वगैरह भी आएगा और जरा सा मारेगा ये तो ठुस हो जाएगी. That's what people used to say. And when people started driving it, all that, it had a good acceleration because it was a nice, efficient car with a good engine matched with the body, and also very nippy, efficient vehicle and fast vehicle also. Acceleration was very good. And then people had a thing like, अरे ये तो इतना fast चलती है, जरा सा accelerator दबाओ तो ये तो भागती है, ये तो दूसरी गाड़ी में जाके घुस जाएगी and all. So all those reservations were there. कि ये तो बड़ी अनसेफ रहेगी, ये इंडिया में नहीं चलेगी, ये नहीं हो सकता. एंड देन द पॉइंट केम इज, अरे अच्छा चलो कार आ भी गई, तो कार रोड्स कहाँ है? रोड्स तो है ही नहीं. तो देन इट वाज दैट चिकन एंड एग सिचुएशन. पहले कार आएगी या रोड्स बनेगी. सो एक बार डिसाइड कर ही लिया कार बनानी, तो ठीक है पहले कार बनाओ तो रोड्स तो फिर बनती रहेंगी, फिर गवर्नमेंट को बनानी पड़ेंगी, रोड्स तो बनेगी फिर. So that's how it actually happened also. So that's how the car apprehensions were there in the minds of people. The car was introduced. It was in 83, December 83. That is when the first car was made and
got it,
and was delivered by Mrs. Indira Gandhi to the first customer there. But before that, you are also right that you talked about the after sale service kaise hogi and all that. So the big point was that technology was much different from what was the technology existing in India. So this time again, Mr. Bhargav called me. What I think now going back and relating it to these times, I think I joined a startup. It was a startup. Now these days, there are a lot of startups are coming up and people, take a risk, they get into this and they start working on it. It may succeed, it may not succeed, but then you work hard to make sure that it succeeds. So it was a startup. So as it was thing like इसको succeed करना ही करना है किसी भी तरीके से. And we were working as those small number of people who were working.
How big was the team?
We were working as a small team. Naman, to give you an idea, when I joined the company and I used to travel from my house to factory or house to the head office, which was in Hansalia building, as I said, we used to be 14 people in the company, including Mr. Bhargav and Mr. Krishnamurthy. And we used to be picked up from our house. There used to be old Matador, which used to go to everybody's house, pick them up and bring them to factory, because transportation was not so, public transport was not so really good that you could reach, Gurgaon, because that Gurgaon at that time used to be, like you mentioned earlier, jungle. It was in middle of a no man's land. It was not developed. What you see Gurgaon now, you could have never imagined at that time. This thing. So we were 14 people. It's a very small team when we started working on this thing. So coming back to, what before, once it was selected and then things started moving. So again, Mr. Bhargav, one of the meetings asked me, Pankaj, Suzuki has technology. Suzuki knows how to make cars. But if those cars are not successful in India, people don't accept it because they don't know how to repair it, they don't know how to maintain it. It will be a failure. Suddenly, a bad word will go around, and people will stop buying the cars. So then he said that I'm giving you a responsibility to ensure that our after sales network is fully trained to take care of these cars. So I told him, sir, I'm a development engineer. I have not had any experience in servicing or after sales service. That doesn't matter. Everything has to be done first time. So I was then given a ticket. I went to Japan, Suzuki.
Okay.
I spent 1.5 months there, and one of their a very senior trainers in Suzuki Motor Corporation, he was assigned to me. So both of us worked together, and he then gave me a lot of knowledge as far as the car servicing is concerned, training is concerned, repair is concerned, maintenance, and all those kind of things. So I came back. Then I designed the training center here, designed the training aids, brought some aids from Japan also, designed the training program, and almost, I think, first 8 to 10 dealers, I personally trained them, their staff, their manager, their supervisors, their technicians. So at that time, we did that thing. And then we kept on expanding. My team also expanded. I also had more trainers who joined me. And then, that is how the thing started. And then those dealers which were selected, their manpower, mostly they were those ambassador premier people, technicians and supervisors and managers. They had to be trained, and that was a big job. The mindset changing. वो गाड़ी जिसमें कि वो आप 50 किलोमीटर चलाने के बाद बोनेट खोलते हो, फिर पानी बोतल से डाल के उसको रेडिएटर को ठंडा करते हो और फिर चलाते हो. अब उसमें चेंज हो रहा था कि इसमें तो पानी डालने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, ये तो अपने आप ही चलती रहेगी, ये गर्म होगी ही नहीं.
I think one of the big things that came up, which changed after sales service, at least in my mind, please correct me if I'm wrong, is the authorized service stations. People who are not dealers, but just service people. And this huge network, I think this was a game changing idea, which probably none of the other car manufacturers came up with. When did this happen? Because I remember in my life, when we also had a Maruti, we used to go to Satwala Garage, and that guy used to do it, right? And now when I own a car, or even my dad owns a car, we don't even think of doing that. So there has been a sudden mentality change also. So how did that transformation happen from a dealer oriented workshop model to an authorized service station wala model? Did that happen in the initial 80s, or did that take time?
That again is a very, very interesting. Yes, it was in 80s, early 80s only, when the idea was there. When I told you I was doing the training, I was the chief training coordinator for the company and had people training, the training engineers were there with me and all that. So we, at that time, the service department was also established because, other areas in addition to training were also to be there. So we were working along with, and my department manager, he was one Colonel Shah, who had joined, who had taken a VRS from the army, and he joined. And they used to have, the weekly meeting with Mr. Bhargav, different departments all going to head office in Hansalia and having a weekly meeting. So what I told Colonel Shah, sir, गाड़ियां तो बन जाएंगी, हम डीलर्स भी एस्टेब्लिश कर देंगे. अगर कस्टमर को 20 किलोमीटर 25 किलोमीटर ड्राइव करके सर्विस कराने जाना पड़ेगा तो वो नहीं जाएगा, क्योंकि वो फिर पैसे बचाने की कोशिश करेगा या उसको डिफिकल्ट फील होगा. और जैसे आपने बताया नमन के हम वो डाउन द रोड जो एक मैकेनिक था उसके पास ही चले जाते थे, तो वो उसके पास चला जाएगा और वो फिर गाड़ी हमारी खराब होगी. पीपल विल नॉट से कि वो मैकेनिक ने इसको खराब कर दिया, but it was basically not done properly because that mechanic was not trained, who is the roadside garage. So he said, "फिर क्या करेंगे?" I said, "We should have, in addition to dealers, we should have authorized service stations also." He said, "नहीं, कैसे होगा? कौन invest करेगा?" I said, "आप सोचो तो सही, बात तो करो." So the next meeting on Tuesday when he went to Hansalya, he said, "Sir, I feel that we should have these service stations which are authorized." So he made it as his own idea. So good of him. But whatever. So that idea was caught on by Mr. Bhaga. He said, हाँ, आप work on it. And he came. पंकज, तुमने कहा था ना, अब उस पर काम करो. मैंने कहा वाह बढ़िया, जो कहते हैं ना, जो बोले वही
कुंडा खोले.
मैंने सजेस्ट किया और ये कहते हैं पंकज अब तुम इस पे काम करो, तुम बनाओ ऑथराइज सर्विस. ठीक है सर, स्टार्टअप है, हमने सब कुछ करना ही है इसमें तो. Then we, went around. Initially, I remember I appointed in Delhi 6 authorized service stations. We started off with Delhi only, and then we expanded it further. So went to some petrol stations who had small facilities, or went to some people who had a little bigger garages and told them whether they would like to be authorized and all that. So that's how this authorized service station, then we gave it a name as MAS, Maruti Authorized Service Station. So this is how the masses started. And then there was no stopping. So they were all over. They were on the highways, they were on the hills, and they were, in the interiors, and even one-way workshop in small cities, towns, and all. So, and I don't know whether you have seen or was it before your time that there used to be an ad, Maruti's ad.
I was going to say that right now.
Kancha's ad. Do you remember that?
Yes. Ladakh, I think.
So that was the kind of thing. हाँ. तो आपको कहीं खाने पीने के लिए कोई ढाबा मिले ना मिले, ऑथराइज्ड सर्विस स्टेशन तो मिल ही जाएगा. People started moving and people started traveling. People started going on holidays after Maruti came. Because they had the confidence the car will not break down when they drive long distance. And they also had a confidence अगर कुछ हो भी गया तो कुछ ना कुछ तो सर्विस स्टेशन मिलेगा जहाँ पे काम हो जाएगा, स्पेयर पार्ट्स मिलेगा हमें. So that confidence, once it came, people started enjoying. They started going to holidays, they started traveling, and then they started buying more and more. So that also helped a lot in us in expanding our production. We started with the production of how much was it? 20,000 in the first year. That is how we started, and went up from 20,000 to 40 to 60, 80, 1 lakh, and now we did more than 15 lakhs. So that is how the things have grown. It is basically because of the customer's confidence. Right. Customer confidence in the car, customer confidence in the after-sales service, customer's confidence in the spare parts availability, and reach that is there. They can take the vehicle to anywhere, and there will be a trained mechanic available.
Oh, definitely. My first vacation. Oh, I don't remember it, but photo is of a red Maruti going to Mussoorie in 1993. That is, I'm sitting on the roof of a red Maruti, and there's a photo there. That's the vacation we used to have. But what I want to ask you,
three colors used to be the really sought after: red, white, and pastel blue. So these were the colors where people used to mostly. And initially the things were different. There used to be booking. People used to book their vehicles by paying an advance, and there used to be long queue for delivery. People used to wait for a long time to get and even that booking card used to be sold at premium. So we've seen a lot of things happening in this.
Now, one of the biggest achievements probably of the after-sales customer service was the JD Power customer service study, where you got the award for 17 years straight. Unbelievable. But one of the problems that I've seen is not gaining quality; it is maintaining quality, right? So, how was Maruti able to grow such a big network, but also make sure that the quality of the service was the same? Every service station you go to, Ladakh to Delhi or Ladakh to Kanyakumari, quality of the service is the same. And I'm pretty sure that must have been a challenge in itself, making sure that, while you're growing as many, authorized service dealers, making sure that the quality of service provided at all stations is the same. So what was the strategy that you guys employed to make sure that the quality remained consistent?
You see, training was one of most important area that we worked upon. That we must have our manpower who's fully trained. Then we had SOPs for establishing a workshop, designing a workshop, what all should be there, where all it should be there, how the vehicle should flow, how crisscrossing should not be there, how the washing has to be done, all those kind of things required to be planned. And we had made, those SOPs there, and we had set formats. And dealers were advised and dealers were helped in making the workshop, have the manpower which was trained by Maruti, and also follow the internal system with regards to receiving the customer, with regards to opening the job card, with regards to recording his observations, regarding his complaints, regarding his demands for repairs. So all these formats, forms, all these things were made. They were made so such a standard way that there was a uniformity all over. And in addition to that, Maruti also spent a lot of effort in building up its own, not the dealers network, but its own network. When I say own network, in a sense that we had our own regional offices. We had people who were stationed in the regional offices, and we had even the area offices created, and we had our service engineers which were there. So they were all there. They were given the responsibility of set number of dealer workshop where they used to visit, see the things were happening, and if there were any concerns from the customer, they were taken care. If any training is required, if anything which is not going right, they would ensure that it's done right. So it's basically that uniformity which we established, the systems that we built, the SOPs which were there, and the monitoring which was being done by our field team. That is what ensured that a proper service. And it's not only providing the service; it is service to the satisfaction of the customer. Now, it's always possible that you may say, "अच्छा ठीक है साहब, ये गाड़ी आपने दी है, हमने सर्विस कर दिया, अब आप ले जाइए." तो कस्टमर तो पहले तो ये सोचेगा कि भाई, how do I know what job have you done? Why are you asking me so much money? Have you done this job or not? So all these things would come, and you would also find many customers who would say, "काम तो करना है, लेकिन पैसे नहीं देने में." So then he will try to find ways of how to get the job done on free of cost. And कुछ customers हमारे पास जो आते थे वो बहुत polite. They will talk to you politely. They will respect the people in the workshop and all. कुछ आएंगे, मैं पता है मैं कौन हूँ, मैं उसका बेटा हूँ या मेरा वो है. So they will try to influence, try to use their influence so that they get the job done, more and more job done without paying. So it was a responsibility, and we had to train the people to let the customer know that job has been done, what job has been done, why we are charging you so much money. So before you start the job, discuss it with the customer. What are the various things to be done? Tell him why it should be done also. And when the job has been done, then you explain what jobs have been done. And then we also introduce a practice, whatever the parts have been replaced, we used to put them in a bag and put a knot on it and put it in the vehicle. So these सारे parts जो हैं ये हमने replace करे हैं. It is basically so the customer has a confidence कि हाँ ये सब काम हुआ है. Customer would not mind paying in that if he knows that yes, the parts have been replaced and these jobs have been done. But अगर आप उसको चाबी पकड़ा दोगे, सर आपकी गाड़ी सर्विस हो गई, अब ले जाओ, तो then he will always have that apprehension. So basically, the service has been done. Now, customer also have to be satisfied that yes, the job has been done, and then you have to ensure that the job is done. That customer doesn't, it shouldn't happen that he drives to his house and suddenly he finds that oh, wiper ही नहीं काम कर रहा. So this is not the thing. So then we have to ensure that the final inspection after the job has been done is a very strong final inspection. So not only what the customer demanded, but in addition to that, the job which is not demanded, other things are also checked and ensured that कि ये नहीं कि एक काम करते करते दूसरा काम खराब कर दिया. So if you have to make your reputation, if you have to build your reputation, then you have to ensure the customer is at ease, customer is satisfied. और वो तो फिर स्टोरी है कि ये तो खत्म, कस्टमर के साथ स्टोरी खत्म नहीं होती कि एक बार आपने गाड़ी उसको सर्विस करके दे दिया. Once you have given the vehicle back to him after service, then your job is over. No, it's not. It's not that toothpaste. एक बार बेच दिया और आपकी responsibility खत्म. No. So you have to be in contact. So we had a system that after 3 days, our customer care executive will ring up the customer. Sir, आपने इस दिन सर्विस कराई थी. You got the service done. Is the vehicle okay? Is everything all right? Then the customer will come back. हाँ, everything is okay. Or customer say नहीं, वो एक छोटा सा आवाज आ रहा है, or whatever the things may be. So that's again to give the confidence to the customer that we care for you. So that way you either call the customer to the workshop or you send your technician to customer's house and fix it up for him. Again, when the vehicle now came about 3 months back, now it would have run 10,000 kilometers. So then you have to remind the customer, sir, last time you came, you got this and this job done. This work was done. This was the kilometer and all. And right now, you must have reached so much kilometer. I have done about 10,000 kilometers. So now your vehicle is due for service. So when are you bringing your vehicle? So that way, staying in contact with the customer, ensuring that the customer thinks that you are advisor for him. When you go to the workshop, the person who receives you should not be only taking the vehicle and doing the service, but he should be advising you also. कि सर आपके टायर में ये थोड़ा सा कट आ रहा है, इसको थोड़ी देर अगर ऐसे ही चलाते रहेंगे तो there could be a problem with that. So you should change your tire or get it, whatever the things are required. So advisor, like a doctor advises a patient, similarly there should be advisors who should be advising the customer. So that confidence has to be built into the customer.
But where did this thought come about? I think in the past 2 minutes, you've given so many different learnings. It's unbelievable. One, open and transparency with the customer. Second, customer education. Third, customer just maintaining multiple touch points. The fact that, after the service, you would call them. Then there was the fourth interesting part, which I remember that wo kharab part aapko theli mein mil jayega ki, you see, once you see, you believe. Then this idea of, calling the customer 3 months or whenever you feel the next service is due. All of these are very well thought out, very well, brilliantly executed ideas, right? And these are not, ye ek idea nahi hai, ye alag-alag ideas are connected to the same thought. But how did you come up with, how did you, Maruti, come up with these ideas? What was the process? Was it something that you had designed initially, or was it that, you defined, so you learned as you went on the job? So you realized that, customers were not ready to pay or they were fighting. Then you said, okay, let us show what we've done. Then you said that once we do a service, the customer does not come back. So you realized, okay, let me call the customer. What was the iteration of this brilliant customer journey that Maruti is now?
Naman, Rome was not built in one day. So you had to go as you face you very rightly said, whenever we had this kind of feedback, because we in Maruti take feedback very seriously. Customer feedback is considered to be very important. Positive or negative, it has to be seen. It has to be acted upon. And Maruti always put a lot of emphasis on that. So yes, you are very right. Whenever we face this kind of feedback, we had to work out the systems. We had to design the systems so that we were able to satisfy to the customer's requirement. I tell you one small incident. When we have a front office in the workshops, so the customer goes there. He goes and stands in front of that the clerk who is there with the computer in front of him, and the customer tells him, sir, customer will tell him, मेरी ये गाड़ी में ये काम होना है, मेरी गाड़ी का number ये है, whatever those details. Then the job card is prepared, and he will take out the printout of the job card. The customer goes to the outside where the car is parked there. Then he will look around for the service advisor. When the service advisor comes, he'll hand over that thing. Now, one of the visits that I had gone to Mumbai. That was on my official visit to inspect some of the workshops and have review meetings with my teams there. I was returning, and I was traveling by jet at that time. Although jet had a lot of problems later, but one time they used to be very efficient and proactive airlines. So I was traveling by jet. I was standing there in a queue for check-in, and I had only, since it was morning evening thing, I went early morning and was returning in the evening. So there was a long queue in front of me. So I was standing there waiting for my turn to check in. So suddenly a smart lady comes and, "Sir, you are carrying only this handbag?" I said, "Yes, sir. Where are you traveling to?" "I'm traveling to so and so place." "Please show me your ticket." I showed her the ticket. So she produced a small slip, which was a boarding card for me. So 15 people standing in front of me, I bypassed them. So she gave me that a boarding card. She printed with that handheld device that she had with her. And it is like you swipe your card now. They bring the machine to you, swipe your card, and there only they give you the slip. So that is the kind of thing which happened. So that struck me. I said, why should the customer in our workshops, in our front office, stand in a queue, wait for him to come to the front desk, and then get the job card open? Why can't our service advisor be having this handheld device? So whatever it may be, let's work on it. And when the customer comes there, outside only, when the customer is received, there only he opens a job card for the customer. He doesn't need to come to the front office inside and wait in a queue. So then we decided to have something. So we had a tablet given to all the service advisors, and this was linked to the main computer of the dealership. And so job card was opened for the customer outside only. Customer did not have to stand in the queue by coming to the front of it. So these are the things when you learn, you understand. And over a period of time, the customers become very smart and very demanding also. Because the customer is exposed to, he's with all this 7-star hospitality, traveling in air, although in this pandemic, there's no air travel, but, those kind of things, and the hotels, and enjoying the services overseas. So he expects those kind of things to be there. So that's how you also have to change with time and see that the customer is properly taken care of. And then customer satisfaction has to go into customer delight. So you have to delight the customer. You have to go a step forward. The customer should be really feeling that you're doing that bit extra. So it's not only that what was required has been done, but what was not required, even beyond that, you have gone. So given the things which are more than what he expects. So that delight. From customer satisfaction, you have to go to customer delight. And the reason why you want to do is because ultimately, what is your objective? You want repeat purchase. You want the customers to keep coming back to you. And that only happens by ensuring the customer has a confidence in your product and in your after-sales service. Yes.
No, I totally agree that the story about the handheld devices just shows that customer obsession, and probably that is the way of making sure that you have repeat customers, which also goes on to the story about moats. और मेरे को वो मोट के बारे में बात करना है कि मारुति ने वो 50% मार्केट शेयर और मोर देन दैट कैसे मेंटेन किया, एंड व्हाट डू यू थिंक हैज बीन द रीजन फॉर दैट, एंड व्हाट इज द आफ्टर सेल सर्विस का इंपॉर्टेंस इन दैट कंट्रीब्यूशन बिन. बट मेरे को उससे पहले ना, आई जस्ट वांटेड टू टॉक टू यू अबाउट मारुति सर्विस मास्टर्स. सो यू हैव मास, व्हिच इज मारुति authorized service stations. And I think those came before, and then you started Maruti Service Masters. So why did that start, and what is the story behind that?
No, man, during my early days working with Maruti, I was also posted at Chennai. So I was the zonal manager there for Chennai. There's this Andhra Pradesh, this Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka and Kerala were all my territory for sales, service, and spare. So I basically came back after doing 3 years there, and I was looking at marketing and planning in head office. So they're working for 2 years and all that. So my director who was there in the head office there, Japanese director, Mr. Sengai, he said, Pankaj-san, we need help. You have some background in service? I said, yes. He said, what is happening is our dealers are not able to innovate. They're not able to come out with the new ideas. Whatever we tell them, they're not able to accept it so easily. So I think what we should do is we should have our own model workshops. I said, yes, that's an idea. So again, I said, you say yes to some good idea, then they say, so Pankaj, why don't you start it off? So I said, fine. Then I was basically, after I said that head office, 2 years in head office, then I was given this task to work on it. So now here the thing was, you had to make a workshop. You had to make it very efficient, very modern, innovative, having all the systems and have the manpower which was fully trained. But also then one of the things was that it should be profitable. Now, if I made that workshop as a subsidiary of Maruti, then it would have been difficult because all the employees would have been Maruti employees working there, from washing boys to the manager level, general manager level, and all. So basically, then I discussed with Mr. Senga, and we decided that we will form a separate company.
Achha.
We will have. Then it was decided that we will have. There is a company called Sumitomo Corporation of Japan. So we went into a joint venture with them. So then I went around all over industrial areas in Delhi, because a authorized workshop of a reputed company has to be in an authorized place only. You can't just make it on a road or in a colony, residential colony, whereas roadside garage can come up, but you need it to be in a place where it is following all the laws, rules of the land and all that. So all industrial areas, I went around, looked for land, and ultimately zeroed in Okhla. So we bought a company, because it was a old Matador workshop, and so we bought that company, and we got into the directorships of that company. The reason was that we wanted to have it as a running company as such. So that workshop itself, so we did some modifications to the building and designed it to our levels and all. So that workshop came up. We recruited the manpower from outside. We trained them. Then we started, like the original objective was to have it as a model workshop. So the design of the workshop, the equipments in there, the SOPs to be followed there, the systems to be followed there should be such that people can follow that and duplicate that in their own workshop. So we made a workshop where dealers from all over India used to come and see what was happening and how successfully it was happening. And then they took it back to their workshops and adopted there. So that objective was achieved there. So there was a problem that dealers from south, it was becoming difficult for them to come all the way. Says hum frequently dekhna chahein, and our staff wants to see and all. So we opened similar workshop in Chennai also. So there was one in Delhi, one in Chennai. And since it was serving the objective, and many dealers used to come to Delhi for some other purpose also, to head office or to factory. So they also used to visit Maruti Service Masters, which was in Delhi, Okhla.
The automobile sector, the passenger automobile sector in India currently is in a very difficult position. So just wanted to get your views on what you see as, the current scenario. What is the current problem when it comes to passenger automobiles, and what does the future look like, especially when, we are in a transformatory phase when it comes to BS4 to BS6, or this whole new concept of electric vehicles taking over? Although I feel it's going to take some time, but I'm not an expert. So as an expert, what do you feel the traditional automobile industry has to do when it comes to the threat of electric vehicles?
You see, as far as the automobile industry as such is concerned, yes, last year was a little tough period when the sales were not as good as the year before and all, and then this pandemic came and totally no sale, no production, nothing. But hardly. Very happy thing now that we have is that the numbers that we are producing now and selling is almost the same that we were doing it last year. And the demand is there. And the reason not probably, but yes, the reason could also be many people want to drive their own vehicle. They want to have their personal vehicle rather than traveling in public transport because of social distancing and other things which the country is right now going through the pandemic situation such. So well, right now the things are not bad. We are basically producing as much as we can. And now coming back to your question of EV, IC engine, internal combustion engine, has been there for more than 100 years. I think it's almost 120 years that it's been. It has evolved over a period of time, and it has been made more and more efficient and all that. And the EV, electric vehicle, also people have been trying, but it was not efficient. People were not able to, make those electric vehicles efficient so that they can be mass produced and commercial production can be done. You see, in an electric vehicle, I think I feel that there are 3 R's. First R is the right price. Second R is the range. And the third R is the reach.
Okay.
Now, you can make an electric vehicle, and if it's very expensive, people would not want to buy that. If you make it that it can only travel 100 kilometers, people would not buy that because the range is not enough. So he wants flexibility, he wants mobility to be there. And the reach, that he should be able to charge. The charging facility has to be there. He should be able to charge the vehicle efficiently so that there is no problem getting stranded on the road or not being able to drive enough kilometers with a single charge and all. When we are talking about right price, if we talk about strictly the cost of producing an electric vehicle and we want to sell it by recovering that cost, is going to be very difficult because it's going to be very expensive. So the government does have for the initial few years that they are subsidizing, they're giving grants, they're supporting this electrical infrastructure where, even maybe you would have heard about Delhi recently also saying that they would support introduction of electric vehicles and they would give subsidy with respect to, reducing the cost or giving cash back to the customers if they buy this, or even reducing the taxation or reducing the road tax and all those things so that the vehicle cost can be brought down. So the pricing will come down if a customer doesn't have to pay heavily in addition to the cost, the tax or the insurance or the or the sales tax, central tax, and all those things. So that needs to be brought down. So the price then only can come down at this stage. Range also, a lot of work is being done, and where initially the vehicles were there 100 kilometers and all the earlier technology, now we have examples of vehicles even going more than 400 to 500 kilometers on a single charge. So that also is coming up. So still it needs to be perfected. And as far as the reach is concerned, there again, I think it's the private as well as the government effort has to be done to have the charging stations available, because the customer will have confidence only that if he is able to have that kind of infrastructure available, that kind of support available to him. So we are moving in that direction. And some numbers, although right now the companies which are making in India, they are not making in more than 3 figures. But over a period of time, I think it will pick up. It will become more efficient. Companies are working on the lithium-ion batteries production also. Even Suzuki has got a joint venture. They have set up a factory. But there again, lithium reserves are in China. China has a big depository of lithium. So how the things shape up and how much they are open in distributing that. But if that is not streamlined, or that is too costly to import, again it will take a longer time to find substitutes.
No, thank you. I think that's a very so from my naive opinion to a very detailed opinion on what it is going to take. I think that's a very good way of thinking about the evolution of EV vehicles in India. So now we'll move to a rapid fire section, and after that I will, not take more of your time. So just a few quick questions to get to know more about you. Favorite quote? Favorite saying?
Favorite quote. You want the serious one or the lightest one?
Both.
Oh, you want the both?
Okay. Yes.
I expected that. I thought if I give you a choice, you would ask me both. Okay. Let me give you the serious one. It's never stop learning, because life never stops teaching. So you keep on, learning. Don't close your doors. Close your mind. Keep listening. Keep your eyes and ears open. And one the lighter one also is that keep smiling. It makes other wonders what you have been up to.
I like the second one more. While I believe in the first one, I like the second one. It's quite true, and actually, it's very true for you. You're always smiling. That's one of the very good things that I like about.
That's what life is. You can't you can't just go through your life by having a straight face and being angry or being this. Keep smiling. Things fall in their own place.
Nice.
It may take little time, but things fall in place. Yeah.
Favorite business personality?
Oh, Tata, Ratan Tata.
Okay.
He's one person I have admired a lot. His philosophy, his straightforwardness, his honesty, his vision, and he's one man I admire.
Yes.
He's somebody to look up to and aspire.
For Mr. Tata, I don't think anybody has to ask why. I think everybody knows that he is such an inspirational person, for sure. Which opinion have you changed in the past 1 year? One opinion that you've changed in the past 1 year.
I've not changed, but I've been forced to change. I wanted to travel a lot, but the nature has forced me to change that. So I'm waiting for the things to improve so that I can resume my traveling.
Yes, of course. That you should not change.
That is something. No. So let's wait for the things to. But that burning desire is there. कहते हैं ना हिंदी में खुरक होती रहती है.
Most important moment during your business journey till now?
Well, the first one was to join Maruti. That was very important. But then you said, I think one moment was there when I got a very lucrative offer from an automobile company in Kuwait. Tax-free money, a lot of benefits and incentives, and a lot of savings. So they offered me a job after 2-3 rounds of interviews and all. And that moment, the decision which I took, not to join, but to continue with Maruti. So I think that was the moment which was very important for me.
And why did you
Otherwise, it
stay?
would have been totally a different.
Why did you stay, if I may ask?
It was the company which I built, company with which I grew, company which grew with me. And here I was looking at something very uncertain. I don't know how those Kuwaitis are going to be, how the market is going to be, maybe because they offer you contract. First is 2 years, then it is renewable every 1 year or something. So who knows what is there? So here it is something which I know. I know the people, I know the company, I know the future, how it is shaping up. Why should I again run after money and just a few dollar more spoil my career or spoil my life?
Fair enough. Thank you so much, Pankaj sir. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us today. Last thing, if you enjoyed the conversation, please ask our users to like and subscribe to the Crux podcast.
Yes. So everybody who has been who has been listening to me, listening to us, listening to our conversation, I request you to subscribe to Crux and hear and listen and see the people talking about different phases that they have gone through their business growth. People involved in different phases of life. So do subscribe and do follow Crux.
Thank you so much.